Now, arrays are wonderful. As you can see here, we are able to add things. We are able to create int strings, and obviously you can create other types as well. Okay, so they're very good. And you'll see that we will be using a lot of arrays in our lifetime as programmers. That's wonderful. However, Java evolves, and Java gives us other ways in which we can do collection or data structure, or adding different forms of data, or adding data into structures that are a little bit more sophisticated, if you will. Not to say that arrays aren't sophisticated, but there are times that we need to take things to a different level. That's why Java has ArrayLists. Now, what an ArrayList is, it is an array that is a little bit more sophisticated, which allows us to do a little bit of more object-oriented type thing. Meaning with an array, if we have an array as such, there's very few things that we can do with it, right? So we can say new array. If I say dot, we just have the length function that we can get, and the method clone, and other methods that we saw that comes from our object superclass, right? Which is wonderful. However, as you can see, it doesn't give us much more than that, right? And we sometimes need a little bit more than just plain array. So an array list gives us this possibility of creating arrays, but with a little bit more than just simple arrays. Okay, let's go ahead and create an array list real quick here. I'm going to come at the bottom here, get rid of this, and I'm going to say array lists. So to create an array list is very simple. In fact, how about going to our documentation so we can see what we can find? So back to our Java class library here, what I'm going to do, let's go to our package called util here real quick. So there we go, java.util. Click on that. There's a lot of things. There's collection, which is part of arrays, and other things, right? And we want to go and find arrays. There's arrays and there's array lists. So click on this array list here, and there's a lot of great things here. So in this class array list here, you can see that it has these angular brackets, and inside there's this E. So don't get intimidated. What this means is that an array list as an object itself, we can create or instantiate array lists, but we need to put inside of it, if we want to do, inside here, we can put the types of items we want to create, meaning what kind of things we are going to put inside of our array list. So if our array list needs to have strings, obviously we're going to just put string inside of E. So this E just means, what is the type that we're going to add there. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look real quick here and see how we can do that. So to create an array list, there's a few ways. So I'm going to say start by saying array list, right? And you can see there it is, just like what I showed you there. And we can put, say, string, and say, for instance, array list of name, and is equal to new array list as such. Okay, that is totally valid. But it is also valid to simplify our lives, to say just array list like that, and call this name is equal to new array list. So this also works. Now, the reason why I like this style sometimes is because it's very visible, although there's a little bit more coding or a little bit more verbosity, if you will, but it's very visually appealing in the sense that it allows us to know exactly what types are expected in this array. Now, this here is a little bit more relaxed and liberal, as we say, no pun intended, but it still works. So in fact, we can do all sort of things regardless of how we're doing it. So I'm going to use this simplified way here, but I will say that whenever you can, it's always a good idea to put it this way here, because then we know exactly, like I said, this array list will contain strings. All right, now the beauty about array lists here, going back to our documentation, is that there is properties and methods we can actually invoke. Voila, there is this add method. This add method is great because it allows us to add a type. Oh, look at this. Let's learn something real quick here, okay? Okay, let's zoom in so you can see. So it says add, and this is another thing I said before. This E here, it is what it says at the top here, right? So essentially, it's what we may pass inside here. So saying that the type of this array list is going to be string, meaning we only want to add strings inside of it. Very good. So with that in mind, in this method here, we can say add, and what is it that we're going to be adding? Well, we're going to be adding this type that we said. So if it's string, it's going to be a string type of variable. That's all we're doing here, right? And you can see there's overloading here of methods because we have another add where you can actually pass in the index where you want to add that element. So you can say, for instance, I want to add, in this case, let's go back down here. We can say name.add, and I want to add at index 1 element that says Paulo, a string. You can even use the add all, so you can actually add another collection, which we didn't talk about. So essentially is another data structure of elements inside of our array list. You can clear, you can clone, you can look for contains if it contains a certain object. You can get an element. Notice here it's going to return an element of type string or int, depending what type you specify, and so forth. Okay, you can remove items at certain index, of course, and all sort of things. So this is the reason why ArrayLists is amazing, because now it gives us another level of abstraction, another level of things that we can do that we can't do with plain arrays. Let's go ahead and play around with our array list here. So we have our array list, and we can come down here and say name and access a few things. I can add any sort of object. Notice at this point here, it says object type. This means we can add whatever we want at this point. So whenever you want to create, like I said before, you can specify what kind of items you want. If you say, want to make sure that this program you're writing only wants to add strings, this is a good idea to specify it. But if you want to have a relaxed sort of array list, you can just not add any specification of what types are required, just like I'm showing you here. Hence, if you do that, when you say dot add, notice now it says just object. An object is a very generic thing, as we saw before, right? So we can add whatever we want. In fact, I can come here and say 1 and say name.add, put a string, hello, and this totally works. If I say s out and say name, like that, save, let's run this, let's see what's going to happen. And look at that. It says 1, hello. These are totally different types. There's 1 as an integer, hello as a string. I could have put a boolean, whatever I wanted. However, had I said the following here, put something like this, string, look at that. Right away we have issues because now it's saying, whoa, wait a minute. We have an int, but I said I want strings. Ah, you see now the difference? Very good. So there we go. So whenever you want something more relaxed, just say array list like we did here and instantiate it, and then you can put whatever you want. Now you notice also here at the bottom the way things are organized. This is what I said. In memory, everything is actually put inside of an array because you can see we have these square brackets there, okay? Very good. But notice we have this add. If we want to remove something, we can come here and say name.remove. Look at this. I can remove the actual object or I can remove the index. Let's start with the remove the object. So if I find here and say I want to remove hello, it has to be exactly what we've added before. If you save and run again, notice hello is not going to be there. All we have is just 1. Very nice. So if I say I want to remove not just object at index, so say remove, this is an overloaded function or method, I can say I want to remove index 0. So it's going to go ahead and get rid of the 1. Right? Because first we added 1 and then we added hello. So save this. We should see just hello. There you go. 1 is gone. Hello is there.